Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
First Sunday after Easter is supposed to be like Low Sunday. We've got a lot going on today. And you had your prom. How many people here were at the prom? Cool. Yeah, I heard it was a great time. And then today, following the service, we've got a wonderful gathering for what's called Throwback Sunday, where we get to explore things about one another that we do not know. And it's a very good thing to be doing today, with reconciliation being the theme of our readings this morning, the Collect of the Day and the Gospel. Sort of Jesus introducing the resurrected life to his fearful disciples and helping them to make the bridge between their fear and distress, their grief, and the joy of the resurrection. And that's a reconciliation. It's something that we're all called to understand in increasing and different ways how the resurrection touches our lives. And I don't know about you, but I'm discovering for myself that that process is sometimes come up against some very uncomfortable places in my own self. And so I had something walk into my life this week that I thought I'd share with you. And that one that walked into my life is named Doris Menza. And some of you know that my mom is recovering from hip surgery. She had a fall, so it was determined that she needed to have in-house care. So we called an agency, Companions and Homemakers, and they said, well, someone's going to be arriving by taxi, and her name is Doris Menza. And so she arrives at 7 o'clock, and out walks this very dark-skinned woman out of an orange taxi. And it's Doris Menza who comes to our table and who joins hands with us, and we pray grace over the table, over the food. And from that moment on, Doris Menza was part of our circle. And we found that we've been exploring just how it is that we are with one another, she's come from Ghana to be at our table and in our lives and in our home. And the reconciling force, the reconciling moment of being in prayer together, of holding hands together, has been the beginning of being able to bridge what otherwise would be many, many differences in terms of culture, language, just being with one another. That we're exploring how it is that we can be family, friends, together, in spite of the differences. And she's begun to tell us some of the stories of her own experience as she's been in this country. And one that I came up against was, I said, well, we're going to take Mom to get her hair done, so this would be a chance for you to go out for a walk. And she said, oh, I wouldn't go out for a walk here. And I said, what? Oh, no, because unless you went with me, because I could be stopped. And I could be, someone will come up to me and question me, why am I in this neighborhood? Because she recognized that Litchfield is a predominantly white neighborhood, and she's had experiences moving around New England where that sort of confrontation, if she shows up, is going to be something that occurs. And this touched a chord for me because part of what Jan and I are exploring right now is the Center for Reconciliation being established at the Cathedral of St. John in Providence. And in doing that, I've been reading some books that have been very disturbing for me in terms of how little I am directly aware of the institutional oppression that can be systematically taking place in our culture and in our country, and how that affects the lives of dark-skinned Americans. And for instance, to give you a little quick statistic, and I know it's hard to believe this, but 6% of the population of Rhode Island are African American. But 30% of those jailed in Rhode Island are African American. And it just goes on from that. And you have to wonder, you know, what that prompts, you know, what that prompts in me in terms of wanting to explain that to myself so that I can be comfortable with it, and what that prompts in me in terms of curiosity and wanting to explore it. What is going on that's happening? So at Cross Currents this week, we had a very intimate gathering with Annie Russell, and she explored with us what it means to be a lesbian, gay, or transgender person in our culture, and what systemically happens that impacts the lives of those people. You know, it has impacted her life. And how it is that the work being done through the LGBTQ Center is so important and so needed in our culture, even though we have a sense that a lot has changed for people in a minority position, that there's more tolerance or acceptance. But what happens systemically, what's institutionalized and sort of operating behind the scenes in our culture, anonymous for us, you know, because we would say, Jane and I have been talking a lot about this, you know, well, I'm not part of that. I don't do that. But it's part of who we all are. It's what we have developed in our country, and it's very hard to get at it. It's very hard to confront it. But I think what the letter to John is saying is that part of the way forward is to accept that we all sin. That sin is just part of what it means to be human. It's part of what it means to be a culture. It's part of what it means to be a society. And it isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning. It's, you know, and Jane has said this, how long do we have to keep looking at the problem? When can we do something about the solution? What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And I think what we can do is to explore it honestly and to just be willing to look at it squarely and to wonder about it. And to be curious with an awareness that the Prince of Peace has come into our lives and can come into any circle and allow for reconciliation to happen. I experienced that in the circle at our dining room table, and I experienced that in the circle that Annie Russell hosted at Cross Currents, as we began to just share our stories and to open up to our individual awareness of what it can feel like to be shunned or to be set aside, to be not seen, needing to put on, as one of the participants said, a mask in order to get by, so that we can somehow make a way through an intolerant or an unloving or a dismissive setting, or hide and stay indoors, as Doris says she needs to do in my mother's home, until something would happen so that she could feel that she wasn't going to be confronted if she ventured out the door. And absent Doris coming into our home, we could have remained totally oblivious of that as a potential. You know, we don't think of our neighborhood as being unfriendly or dismissive, but it comes up again and again, and it's so alive in our culture right now. If you think about what's happening with regard to shooting incidences and brutality that's being rendered to those who are transgender, gay, lesbian, black. I mean, our culture is evidencing some of this in these pop-up events that get some news. But it's like the tip of the iceberg, I think, that there's something much deeper, and it's a question of how is it going to be addressed, and I don't have that answer. But I'm wrestling with it, because for the Center of Reconciliation, it's a crucial thing to be heartfully aware of, and to say, I don't have a glib answer to this, but I feel the struggle of it. If you want to sort of come up against it read the book White Privilege. I mean, it's an incredible, it was for me, an incredible wake-up call to just what can be. I have to say, it's very hard to look at it and just say, oh yeah, that's absolutely right. But it's enough right as I read it that I go, oh my God. Lord Jesus, come into this and help us to find peace in the midst of our fear, because there's a lot of closed doors and people huddling away from the truth, afraid of what it would mean to look at it. And Jesus enters those closed doors, walks into those rooms and brings peace. And I've experienced some of that. And to me, the work of reconciliation has to do with that willingness to understand the experience of others who are not at all like ourselves, and to be willing to learn that it's a wonderful world with all of that diversity and all of that wonderful variety. That I can't avoid getting back to that song that Louis Armstrong sort of imprinted in me, what a wonderful world. Because if you see, Doris said to me at one point, she said, well, what do you think of us? I mean, this is a new relationship, and she said to me, well, what do you think of us? And she's the kindest, gentlest person. And I mean, what do you mean? She said, of Africans. And I said, you're wonderful. And I don't know why I said that, but it's what popped out of my mind, out of my heart, to say you're wonderful. But I was at first going, what? What sort of question is that? But it's a wonderful world. And all of the diversity and variety is richness for us. And we're being impoverished to the degree that we're not exposed to that richness, that we're somehow holding it at bay, or putting it in a ghetto, or whatever. We need to find ways of being more in touch with the richness of the world. And so our exercise downstairs today is part of that. There's a lot of richness here in this room that we don't even know yet among ourselves. Where you all have come from, what experiences you've had in your life, what it all means to be here today, given the context of your lives. That's an important piece of being community. And it'd be easy for us not to do that. But then roll that out. How many more settings could we be doing that? Coming to know the real story behind the mask, to know the story of the hearts and lives of people who are part of our world, who are part of the richness of what it means to be a human being today. So I don't know what this will mean for the Center of Reconciliation as we go forward, but it seems that part of what the Diocese of Rhode Island is exploring in establishing the Center for Reconciliation is that we have these divisions, and there's a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness. And we need to confront the truth of the consequence of that and discover in the spirit of Easter what it is to be gathered as the children of one Father, as the people who have all been created by God, who said it's all good. In fact, it's very good, as we heard at the Easter Vigil. So, yeah, we're a reconciling community, and I'm just pushing up against something in myself that it's easy to isolate away from an uncomfortable truth. And I think that we have the power as the community of faith to be the ones who relieve the world of sin, that we offer forgiveness. If we are those who will take on the sins of the world, will confront the truth of it, we can be a forgiving community. And if we're not doing that, then that sin's not being forgiven. We need to be willing to take on the truth and to be active in allowing for reconciliation and forgiveness. So I'm glad we're having this exercise this morning of telling our stories. I think that's a wonderful beginning. And I hope that others will be with us who would create very different posters than the ones we're displaying today. Amen.